And I want to go beyond the walls of the studio for a moment. You've given me a good lead-in. Carol, what kinds of questions are we getting that are coming in again from the phone and email for this panel?
Casey, we've had a number of questions dealing with privacy issues, and I'll try to summarize them. Who owns the data? And for example, if the students' portfolios are used for departmental accreditation or for the peer review and a faculty promotion and tenure process, how do you prevent privacy violations and protect the students' rights?
Helen, let's talk about the experience at Stanford. Again, you talked about that early on as we began this conversation. Privacy issues, data ownership?
Very important, and issues that we're still struggling with, along with our, the other members of the EPAC, trying to figure out, again, when students in their work, they may refer to faculty, they may refer to friends, family, and so on. But in terms of encouraging them to share their work, how do we protect it?
Well, let me be very specific. I'm a Stanford student. Sure. Well, I would love to be a Stanford student. I'd love to go back. But notwithstanding, if I were a Stanford student, if I had an e-portfolio, what kind of process do you lead me through in terms of talking with me about privacy issues? The kind of, and particularly what might be the most private part that you alluded to early on, the reflective journal, the experience of off-campus coming back. I had some work experience or some experience that changed my major. Or I was in Barbara's class or John's class, and that opened up a world to me.
Right.
I mean, what happens with that? Who owns that? What do you tell me as I begin that e-portfolio process at Stanford?
Yes, one component of our project was a coaching process, and we had coaches work with the students and really develop a personal relationship with the students over the course of the 4 years. And oftentimes in establishing that relationship, personal issues come up, personal conversations and so on. Conversations are very important for the students' development, can be somewhat captured in their digital portfolio. But again, those sorts of privacy issues are things that we struggle with and try to figure out how to deal with.
And Barbara and John, the faculty side of this in some ways is even more unnerving. If you think about how we do this and the privacy issues, the fact that many complain, nobody will write an honest letter of recommendation for anybody these days for all kinds of reasons. How does that play out in terms of faculty portfolios? John?
Well, before we go to faculty portfolios, I was going to say that's one of the reasons that the NLII and the AGICAUSE members are interested in this, because they are concerned, as you know, in terms of the IT community. Right. When email came pervasive on campuses, we had to have appropriate use policies. And so one of the goals of the NLII is to be looking downstream and see what things are really going to impact the institutions in teaching and learning, and particularly impact the IT community. And this is clearly an area where there's going to be an impact, because there's privacy issues, there are intellectual property issues, and both the strength is also one of its potential weaknesses. The electronic portfolio makes very public what used to be very private. Right. It makes very visible what was invisible. Before, the learning was so many hours of seat time with a grade associated to it. Now, you really see the product of the student's works in that seat time. So I think the positive side is this could be that magic replacement to the Carnegie unit. On the negative side, the issue of, and this gets back to the identity, your privacy and rights and information. And in a number of the projects, they do have various permissions. This is something that I'll share with my faculty member. This is something I'll share with the department. This is something I want to share with a potential employer, all coming from that same series of artifacts. But that does put a weight on those people who maintain the systems that privacy is maintained.
Barbara, quick comment about faculty privacy?
I want to look at institutional privacy. This is in spades for institutional portfolios. If we learn, in fact, that students aren't graduating at the rates we want, we don't have examples of good student learning, what do? We held a national meeting with SHIOs and people in policy positions around the urban university portfolios. They said if you aren't honest, if you don't put it out there, write this off, don't bother doing it. But don't be stupid about it. Put it in the context of what you're doing to improve when you have learned.
Make it a resource and not a weapon.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, well, it's in that context. Our time's going very quickly. And before we close, I want to give you each an opportunity to make one last short comment about e-portfolios, about the promise, and part of what our conversation today has been about the potential power of e-portfolios, whether it's for students, for faculty members, or for institutions. Helen? Last closing comment, power and promise of e-portfolios.
I think the biggest benefit of e-portfolios is to give students the opportunity to create a representation of their learning wherever that learning may occur, on campus, off campus, virtually or in person.
All right. Barbara, short comment, closing comment.
Most exciting thing to me is to think about the ways in which student, faculty, and institutional learning can intersect and to be nourished and documented through electronic portfolios.
John?
For me, I think electronic portfolios are going to be an emerging trend. Tomorrow we're going to have an all-day focus session looking at that. A week following, AHE is having a session. There's lots of people going to be talking about it, so I'm looking forward to that discussion, and I'm sure that we're all going to be surprised at eventually what turns out of it.
And if I want more information, besides coming to the Ready2Net website, where else can I go? I can go to the NLII site, John?
At EDUCAUSE,
Okay.
at the NLI website,
AHE.
AHE has electronic portfolio database and information.
EPAC?
EPAC will be with the NLII.
All right. At Stanford?
The Stanford Center for Innovations and Learning.
Okay, and also we have additional information that will be linked, not just today, but we'll keep adding to it from the Ready2Net website. So think of us as one repository and lots of others as well. All right, and I really want to thank all of our guests for their participation in today's program. Our thanks as well go to our hosts at PBS station here in Chicago, WTTW, and to the members of the Ready2Net production team. Please plan to join us for our next program on November 21st. Our broadcast that day will originate from Washington, D.C., and is titled, Whatever Happened to Technology? Good question, I think. All right, with that program, we're going to explore what some view, some others may not, as the recent demise of the public policy conversation about technology and education. We're going to pick up from the point of the Webb Commission 2 years ago, look at the Webb Commission not as the touchstone and say it's an unfinished agenda, but say, where is the technology agenda today? Is it a matter of issue fatigue? We're all tired of hearing Al Gore and Newt Gingrich, or are there other factors involved in terms of where we are today in the public policy conversation about the relationship and the role of technology in education? For more information about Ready2Net, for our program archives, for information about the work that we do here, and for registration for future programs, it's all available at the Ready2Net website, www.ready2net.net. Thanks again for joining us today.